You want me to play that, Kristen?
Yes, this is a 2-minute video from our friends at the Colorado Fiscal Institute. It is from 2016, but it's still relevant. And even though it's not the most high tech, I think it does a really great job of succinctly explaining TABOR. So Lisa, if you can press play.
A lot of Coloradans have never even heard of the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, or TABOR. It was added to the Colorado Constitution in 1992, and it has a big impact on how we fund schools, public safety, and roads ever since. Let's go over the basics. Because of TABOR, Colorado is the only state in the nation where our elected officials cannot raise taxes without voter approval. They can't adopt a new tax, can't increase a tax rate, or can't increase the percentage of property that is taxed without voter approval. Under TABOR, any tax policy change that results in new revenue must go to voters. TABOR specifically limits the types of taxes Colorado is allowed to have. TABOR specifically forbids a graduated income tax. Before 1987, Colorado had a progressive or graduated income tax that imposes higher marginal tax rates as income rises. This is the same system most states use and the same system the federal government uses. TABOR also forbids a statewide property tax, bans real estate transfer taxes, and outlaws local income taxes. TABOR also sets a limit on how much government spending can grow each year. There's a cap which allows spending to grow no more than inflation and population each year. So if prices go up 2% and population goes up 2%, spending can grow by 4%. The amount collected in taxes and fees must stay below that cap. If the government collects more taxes and fees than the cap allows, it returns the money above the cap to the taxpayers in the form of TABOR rebates. For example, the state exceeded the revenue cap by about $154 million in 2015. The average taxpayer got about $17 back from the state. TABOR also sets rules on how tax increase proposals are presented to voters. For example, any tax increase on the ballot has to start with the phrase, in all capital letters, shall taxes be raised. This language is then followed by a number representing the total amount of revenue that will be raised by taxes in the first year. This video was brought to you by the Colorado Fiscal Institute.
All right, so hopefully that was helpful in case there are some folks on the call that are newer to like TABOR and sort of what that means for Colorado and particularly for our public services. But to sort of tie it back to the ballot measure, the proposed ballot measure would really impact that second and third provisions of a TABOR. So it would obviously change the income tax from being a flat tax to a graduated tax. And then it would also allow the state to keep any revenue that's collected above the current flat tax rate. And so that's really what it meant on the earlier slide where it said that any revenue would be de-Bruced. That name comes from Douglas Bruce, who is the author of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And now I will pass it over to Lisa for some other school funding news.
In short, we had the special session, the not so very special session, since we've had one every year for I can't remember how long. And the main point here is that because Colorado's income tax is tied to the federal income tax, when the feds give tax cuts, so does Colorado. And what we learned just about a month and a half ago was that the big, beautiful boondoggle bill cost Colorado about $1 billion in revenues in the year that we are in now, the current fiscal year. The legislature has to figure out how to close a $1 billion gap, which comes after when they built this budget in the last legislative session, they had to figure out how to spend $1.2 billion less than what would have just been keeping up with inflation and growth in not just K-12, but higher ed and corrections and healthcare, et cetera. So it was already a lean budget. Now they're figuring out how to get $1 billion out. All of these bills were passed that do something to sort of decouple Colorado's income tax from the federal taxes. So when the federal tax breaks do not have an impact on state house, the state revenues. But as you can see here, it does not get to $1 billion. And so what everybody in the legislature is saying and the governor is saying is they don't want to hurt public education, but they still have an $800 million gap for the current year. And then the next year is going to not just have the issue of the reduced revenues, but also starting in January of 2027, and that's the middle of the fiscal year that the legislature will be, the budget they're building in the 2026 next general session. They now have to deal with the fact that there are cuts to federal education programs, to healthcare, Medicaid, and to SNAP benefits. So Colorado, in addition to trying to figure out what to do with our current budget, also has to take on a lot more costs. And so we are headed for a cliff. Whether they can protect K-12 education, I don't know. We have been through many years of the budget stabilization factor, and there was a great deal of hoopla over the fact that last year we stopped having a negative factor, a factor that took away from just keeping up with inflation plus growth since 1989. They're going to not want to touch that. So what they'll probably do, what the governor has already proposed once, is to get rid of student averaging, which means that when for districts that have declining enrollment, they won't be smoothing out anymore. They'll just count fewer students and try to save money that way. It is going to be an ugly budget, and it kind of feels like somebody needs to do something to get us out of this spiral. And this is from the Education Law Center, a way that they are just counting up. Right now, the House, probably right now as we speak, is passing, the committee is passing a budget bill that enacts the president's budget, which is $101 million less for Colorado. And the Education Law Center just did some quick calculations to sort of give a index of what that would cost. The good news is that the Senate, the US Senate, passed a budget that does not make these cuts. And so there is some hope that the final budget, if they can come up with one, they have to have one by September 30th, or they're in either shutdown or continuing resolution mode. But hopefully there will be that the cuts won't be this bad to federal education funding. Last thing, and I hope, I don't know if there are any questions, Kristen, you're looking in the chat. There was in the big, beautiful billionaire bill, what was called the every ECCA, every choice, I don't know what the second C is. And what it does is creates a $1,700 tax credit, 100% tax credit for somebody who donates to what's called a scholarship, approved scholarship organization. So this is vouchers. This is people can get money directly off their federal tax bill gets reduced by $1,700 when they give to a scholarship organization that will give the money to, doesn't have to be private, but it certainly can be private. The state has to opt into this, and our legislature will not, our state board would not. We are concerned that our governor may. And so that is one of the actions that you'll be seeing over time is us working on getting the governor to not opt in, and also to get gubernatorial candidates to weigh in on whether they would opt into this or not. There is some effort to try to figure out, could we somehow take these federal dollars and put it into public schools only? But that's not how it's written, and but we'll see what the regulations say. But the goal of this thing is to take federal dollars and to promote privatization of schools.
Thank you, Lisa, sort of, for those updates. I'm seeing Katie saying hell no in the chat. Totally agree. Does anyone have questions before we move on to the discussion portion of our meeting? I just want to make sure everyone's understanding the school funding updates and the ballot measure information that we've shared so far.
Is it 3 separate ballot initiatives or one that does those 3 things?
We have filed 3 separate ballot initiatives, this coalition that's called Protect Colorado's Future. There are 6 proponents of those 3, each of those 6 is from another organization to show that we are really working together. So these 3 are not going to be the one that none of them are going to be the one that we are trying to put on the ballot. These are, let's find out how much it would raise. Let's find out what the title language is going to be. We will have title by probably October 15th on all of them. And that would mean we'd have 6 months to gather signatures. So these are not the ones, but we're doing a lot of testing and a lot of figuring out. And it'll end up being one that we'll probably decide on somewhere in December or early January, so that we have the full 6 months to gather signatures and we're ready for it. It'll be something, it will most likely be a graduated income tax. The polling all indicates that education is key. And so I don't think any of even though there's one of them that doesn't say where the money is going to go, there will be money earmarked for education, I feel certain, in order to ensure that we get that the education community can really get on board with this, and it's what voters want to see too. Okay. Should I stop sharing so people can see each other and we can?
I'll read through the questions first and then I'll drop them in the chat. So sorry, I'm just adding one other link about the federal tax credit vouchers. But we'd love to spend, I guess, probably only about 10 minutes at this point, just having the chance to hear from folks on the call today. Keeping in mind that we have some new folks and it's a new school year. We'd love to hear about what celebrations and accomplishments you want to share. I'll just read through all the questions and then we can kind of come back. What concerns is your school district or community facing, and what's top of mind here for you at the start of this school year? And then what would you like to see happen in your district or community this year, and what support do you need to be able to take action? So, Lisa, I think you can stop the share.
So Katie's hand up.
Hi. I'm just like processing all of the things that you just shared. And I still need to consider the prompt you just shared. But I just wanted to say that I do think that like it being tied directly to education is really key. And it being like explicit and like we just yeah, I think like the polling on it, I've heard from other people, right? Like I was talking to I don't know, I feel like it was somebody through union stuff and they were saying like, well, the polling, people support it. Like I do think that people are like, yes, we need to tax people. Like we have like there has to be a tax. Like it's like and to just be direct. That's just like my personal opinion on like how this happens is that like people are ready for it. I know I am. I know like everyone here is, but I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you. So, I don't want to speak for Angie and John, but from the point of the DEI, money is huge, money's huge. But also right now, we're very concerned about the school board races that have none or very few Democrats running. And they're running against people that think that that big bill is beautiful. And so getting into the school boards and then using that to not only interfere with education, but then use it as a springboard to higher office. So our concern, one of our concerns right now, along with money, is trying to help some of the Democrats that are, we don't endorse anybody, but you know, when you have one or two Democrats against a field of 6 Republicans, that type of thing, we're working with them. We're hoping to be working with them more to see if we can help sway, help them with some resources to get their word out about those elections.
Yeah, thanks so much, Donna. Go ahead, Danielle.
I did it. I'm so sorry. I feel like a dinosaur. I can't figure this out. Anyway, so I guess in terms of celebrations, this is sort of a personal one, but I think it's reflective of broader the broader situation. So my son, the one that just graduated from Stanley Lake, did the IB program, and this is a kid who is not he's not your typical straight A student, let's say, kind of disorganized and chaotic. And, he earned the IB diploma. And this summer when he got his results, he was so excited. And like, he's a very chill kid. And seeing how excited he was made me realize how nervous he was, like how important it was to him and how uncertain he was whether he was going to achieve that. And so I think, like, it feels like the world is falling apart and it feels like we are losing so much ground and everything is so high stakes. And and I think all of us probably on this call feel discouraged and responsible, and like this is not like, it's not okay for us to go through another kind of down period because there are kids right now who need us, and we can't like spend another decade sorting things out or whatever, right? Like it feels very like high stakes and low hopes. And so I would just say, like, in terms of celebration, like there are still kids being educated and learning things and knowing more than they knew yesterday, right? And I think, I don't know, we have to take some inspiration from those kids and not feel like all is lost, right? And find where there are incremental changes that we can make or ways that we can prop up teachers or schools or specific classes or whatever it is to kind of right. I'm an educator in a different context in higher ed, but I think our teachers are feeling it. Right, it's like there's a big gray cloud hanging over a lot of people's heads right now, if they're not protected by a red hat. And I think like where there is hope is in community and solidarity and sort of being there for one another. And it's what makes me nervous is, or whatever that prompt was about sort of what are you concerned about, is the kind of doublespeak that we all have to engage in, to figure out how to be supportive without drawing additional unwanted attention to, certain things. And so, DEI or, whatever LGBTQ issues, or I mean, you know, just teaching American history, like these things can be so polarizing and threatening, and book bans, and you know, I don't even remember what I read or where I got this information, but about like, it was probably a podcast about, you know, that book bans can, you know, there are a lot of places, and I don't know like what Colorado's policies are, but like where, you know, a parent can complain about a book and ask that it be banned. And it's totally, there's like a box to check that says, I haven't read this book. And that's like totally okay. And it feels like that seems like a pretty low bar that it seems like we could at least say, like, read the book and know what's in it. And don't just take like a list that's being circulated nationally. And, you know, and so, yes, what you were saying about local elections and kind of work that needs to be done at the local level to ensure that these national agendas aren't threatening Colorado students. Like we can't take comfort necessarily in the fact that, you know, we're in a more bluish purple state. And so I think like there's good and there's risk and vulnerabilities, and there are different levels of vulnerability. And it's like, those are the things that I guess keep me engaged, but also keep me up at night.
Thank you, Danielle. Go ahead, Caitlin.
I just wanted to let everybody know, excuse me, since you're talking about local school board elections, Engage Jeffco is partnering with the League of Women Voters and Jeffco PTA to put on a school board forum. I just put it in the chat for anybody who would like to join us. We'd love to have you there. And yeah, I think we've got every candidate who's running except for one that has agreed to participate. So we're really excited for that, and that'll be on September 29th.
Is that all Jeffco or is that statewide?
That's Jeffco.
Jeffco. Okay, thank you.
Yep, and I'll put in the email there if you have any questions or whatever, you can reach out.
I think the league is doing in other like I don't know, Mark and Io, if you want to mention, I know you guys are doing some candidate forums. And before that, I'm just going to add this, talking about book bans, and this is the link, I should have put it into the Every Student Welcome Network summit that's coming up on Friday. Many of you are coming, but we are pulling people together to start addressing those issues as well.
Thanks, Lisa. Go ahead, John.
I apologize to those who have heard me say this numerous times before, but I always talk about Colorado school funding in the context of we are the most restrictive tax and budget limitation in the country, and people don't realize that. They didn't realize that that's the case. I also would add in thanks for the dollar amounts. I've worked on adequacy studies in a number of states in my past life. Every time the state funds that adequacy study, the state has put significant dollars into public education. Colorado looks like we have and that, thank you, Lisa, for having the answer to how that might not be true in Colorado, because unfortunately it looks like it's going to be true in Colorado unless we're able to put something on the ballot that I see, and I think you're on the right track. That's got to happen. Otherwise, we'll lose this opportunity to do something in public education that every other state in the country that have gone through this cycle anyway have done.
Thank you, John. Go ahead, Angie.
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, obviously, school funding is very important, but I don't want anyone to ever lose track of the fact that we still have a very significant school violence problem. So, my daughter is a teacher at Goal Academy, which is a statewide charter school for kids who, like, are seniors with 2 credits and a baby, and they have lost 5 either students or former students in the last month and a half. The kid who was killed at the dairy barn was one of her students. And then 2 of the kids who were killed right in August were 2 of the kids from their school. So, you know, in addition to worrying about adequate funding, um, we were just talking about this the other day, is the fact that we're getting rid of counselors, because when we start talking about um, adequate funding and classroom teachers, we start saying, okay, we're going to send that classroom teacher in there with 40 kids, and those 40 kids are probably going to need really a school nurse and a counselor and all those kinds of extra people that just aren't there. And especially with the teachers, because their teaching staff has just been devastated by what has happened to these kids, because they basically pour their heart and soul into getting these children back into school and graduating, and then something happens like, a murder, and it just, completely devastates everybody.
Thank you, Angie, for sharing that. I think it's a great reminder, and I'm seeing Katie's comment in the chat, like about how all of these things are so connected. And, it does come back to our state and federal funding challenges. I know we're getting close to time, and I want to give us a few minutes to go over some action steps. So, Katie, I'll let you be the last comment in the discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to that connection that the violence is a symptom of the lack of funding and the privatization that has already happened within public schools. And so it's just so critical that we don't go any further, right? Like we can't. Like our schools don't have money. I'm a para right now training to be a teacher in a middle school, and I'm one of those one-on-one people every single day, all day with the kids that are struggling the most. And there are not enough of us. There's absolutely not. Like I've had to put my body in between kids multiple times in the last week to stop them from hurting each other. Um, and we need more people. We need more resources. We cannot, there's nothing else can be taken from public education. Nothing. Like we do have to figure out this ballot initiative, and there's abundance here. There's plenty. There's enough for all of us. And it's not just as simple as schools need more money, right? Like there's so much more to that. Like we need more supportive adults in buildings, in kids' lives every single day, helping them do that daily growth. And so, yeah, I just want to say yeah, it's all tied together. And we can't go any further.
Thank you, Katie, I think that's sort of a good thought to end on. And thanks to everyone who shared their thoughts during the discussion. I wish we had more time. And just so everyone knows, this is something that we're wanting to work into the Advocates Network meetings more in the future, is really time for there to be group discussion, maybe breakout groups. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll have the opportunity to break up a little bit more into regional discussion based on things that are happening in like local teams of advocates. So to that end, the first action that we have to share today, for those of you who have not done this already, we would love to have you join us on Public School Strong. Public School Strong is a very cool national initiative that uses an online organizing platform called Control Shift. So we kind of use those names interchangeably sometimes. But through the Public School Strong Control Shift platform, there are basically, it's a tool that makes it very easy for folks to share petitions, to create events, and even just to message people that are signed onto your Public School Strong group. So we have a statewide group for Colorado, which I hope everyone on this call is already part of or that you will join. And then there's a growing list of district level groups across the state. So you can either use the QR code or the link I put in the chat to search for a team that exists in your district. And if you don't see one that already exists and you'd like to chat with me about helping to start one, please send me an email. We're super excited to be, I'm sure several of you on here have heard us talk about Public School Strong for a long time. We're really doing it this fall. And so we hope to see you all over there. And we'd love to have some new teams start popping up as well. And then related to Public School Strong, so when I shared at the beginning of the meeting that we've had that the Denver School Board passed a resolution, we had 80 people sign a petition. We did that through Public School Strong. And so that was, just one example of a way that we can be using the platform. So for our folks on the call that are Denver residents, we'd love to build them on the momentum that we have right now from the Denver School Board passing a proclamation, and have everyone, the Denver folks, scan this code, or I'll drop the link in the chat to send an email to your legislators to let them know that we really cannot afford to let the adequacy studies sit on a shelf. And then related to the news that Lisa shared regarding federal vouchers, one of our Advocates Network members, Dawn, shared that National PTA wants to hear from folks about the impact of the National School Voucher Program. So through this link, you can talk about maybe if you are, you know of an experience where like vouchers have taken away from your public schools, or even if you have experience using a voucher. They're really just trying to gather folks' stories. So we'd love to have you fill that out or share it with anyone that you know might be interested. And then our last action is to get your Get It Done swag. So the link here that I will share in the chat is to our Bonfire account. And for those who aren't familiar with Bonfire, one of the things I really love about it is that you can choose the kind of apparel you want. Like, do you want a hoodie or a crew neck or a t-shirt, and kind of customize the color. So, now that the weather's starting to get colder and we're really having this concerted effort to build up the Get It Done team, we would love to have you support us in this way by buying some of our swag, and it would be great to see it pop up more and more across the state as we're building up our local teams, meeting with legislators, showing up at events, and that kind of thing. And then I will also shout out, I see that EO dropped a note in the chat about Rocky Mountain Equality's school board candidate forums, first forums in Boulder Valley, and they have a number of others coming up, and EO shared their email. All right, thanks everyone for staying over 5:30. I'm excited about the discussion we had today and look forward to getting more time having everyone share their thoughts. And I hope that we will see you in October. And Lisa and I will stay on for a few minutes if anyone has final questions or final thoughts. But thank you all so much.